This episode of Test Drive is made possible by RateMyEV.com. No, my friends, your clocks aren't wrong. We haven't traveled back in time, and yes, it is July 2025, and this is a brand new 2024 Dodge Charger Daytona Scat Pack. I'm Nile, welcome back to Test Drive, and today we are looking at probably one of the most controversial new vehicles to hit the market in the last, I don't even know. Been a long time since we've had real controversy, and this one's got it. Today we're going to be going over everything you need to know about this new electric two-door vehicle from Dodge. Now, in order to keep the video on track, I'm not really going to talk about why this should or should not exist. Should it be a muscle car, and if people are going to buy it. This video is strictly a review. We're going to pretend nothing else really existed from the brand before, and this is just an electric performance vehicle, and we're going to talk about how it compares to other electric performance vehicles. If you want to know what my thoughts are on whether or not this should exist, I'll have a separate video discussing that so that we can kind of keep things a little bit separate when it comes to these. Now, as I said, this is the brand's first all-electric vehicle, and we are going to be going over everything about it, the hits, the misses, and everything else in between. So let's get started. Alright, first up, we can't talk about this vehicle unless we talk about pricing. Base MSRP for the RT, as of this time, $53,395 Canadian. Interestingly, it's $59,595 in the US. The US has a higher starting price, and these prices were announced back in 2024 before any talks of tariffs. But then we have double the price in options. We have almost everything you can get on this, bringing our as-tested price to $107,000 Canadian, or just under $86,000 US. Now let's talk about how we get to that price point. Well, we've got the triple nickel paint on here. I wasn't sure how I would feel about it at first, but it's kind of grown on me. There's a couple other different paint colors, a couple funky ones, but nothing too over the top like we saw on the previous generation Charger and Challengers. But then we do have effectively every option on here. We have the Plus group, the Sun and Sound package, the Carbon and Suede package, and then one that I don't expect a lot of people to option, but it is there, the Track package. That gives us the ultra high performance Brembo brakes in red, and they are some of the largest brakes I have ever seen on a production vehicle. We also have the Drive Experience Recorder, which is a built-in dash cam and track recorder. I can't get it to work despite following the instructions, so hopefully a software update will fix that. But then we also have the black one-piece performance spoiler out back, the wide body competition suspension, and the adaptive damping suspension. So the vehicle rides a little differently by going with the Track package. Do I have a track to take it on? No. Would I have had I had one available? You know I would. Why are you going to option it, Dodge, if you're not going to let us do it? Under the hood, we do have a deep storage area, something that we don't see too often with a lot of the newer electric vehicles we've driven, so it is nice to have something there. And like I said, it's pretty deep, so you could put quite a large bag in there if you wanted to. Almost a carry-on. I mean, if it didn't have wheels, it might be able to fit. But powering our Dodge Charger Daytona Scat Pack are two electric motors, giving us all-wheel drive. That is the standard across the board. No matter which one you go with, you're going to have two motors and all-wheel drive. Base power output, 630 horsepower or 470 kilowatts. The power shot button on the steering wheel will give you an extra 40 horsepower for 670 horsepower, 500 kilowatts. Overall torque, 627 pound-feet of it. That is a lot of power from an all-wheel drive two-door vehicle. Overall range, not great, 388 kilometers for this one, 241 miles. You do get a little bit more range if you go with the RT, but I suspect most people aren't going to be too worried about it, much like the Hyundai Ioniq 5N that we drove. This is more of a performance vehicle, so you're going to be driving it a little bit harder anyway, so the range might not be as important. But that comes from a 105 kilowatt hour gross, 93.9 kilowatt hour net battery. And it is a different type of battery that we typically feature here on Test Drive. It is technically a lithium ion, but the chemistry behind it uses different materials. We're using nickel, cobalt, aluminium versus the more common nickel, manganese, cobalt oxides that we find on most other vehicles. Now, why is that going to be important? Well, this is more for performance. Now, according to the internet, that's the same sort of compound that Tesla uses, so they get more performance out of their vehicles like their Plaid ones. But the other format that we typically see is better for overall charging and long-term health, whereas this gives you more overall performance. Because this is a muscle car, that makes sense. You want to have that peak power and be able to push it as hard as you can, as often as you can. So we'll see how long they last long term, but it is kind of an interesting thing to note. Now, also interesting, both motors are pretty much identical. They both produce the same 250 kilowatts for pretty even power distribution. Usually with electrics, we see that the rear unit is the more powerful one, with the front one supplying that extra power and all-wheel drive capabilities, but Dodge has gone with an even distribution, which I also think is kind of an interesting approach. All right, let's talk about the design of the new Charger Daytona, because I actually quite like it. You're mixing a little bit of the Challenger and Charger styling cues, but really, I feel that this vehicle is styled most after the late 60s and early 70s Chargers. Now, Chrysler says that the front R-wing, this flowing scoop that comes actually from the grille up over the windshield, is a throwback to the 1969 Charger Daytona. I don't see that, but good for them. I think it's kind of cool. But for the most part, it is a very unique front end. Again, taking kind of the elements of the previous generation of vehicles as well as their older ones and bringing it into a modern era. And I think it's a very handsome looking vehicle. Regardless of what's powering it, I think that they've definitely nailed it when it comes to the overall design for this two-door vehicle. We have the LED headlights and daytime running lights that sit inside that grille area. And then wrapping up the front end is this lower lip that is in black. And then that black trim wraps around the entire bottom of the vehicle, giving this really a two-tone look, because we do have the sun and sound package, meaning we have the full-length panoramic sunroof, which blacks out the roof. So gives us a cool look. Plus with the carbon fiber mirrors, I think that overall it is a very handsome muscle car. Now, coming around to the side, I think that this is a very distinctively Dodge side profile. Very much in line with the previous Challenger, but I think that they've sculpted the lines down to make it a lot less out there in terms of just needless little angles and cutouts. Yeah, I know that the previous one was a bit of a throwback to the older ones, but this is just a very clean look, which I think the car really needed. Now we have electronic door handles. That's something new for this vehicle. So there's a little button on the inside and then a button to lock it. And then even from the inside, there's a button to open the door with a manual release should you lose power. As I mentioned, we have the carbon fiber mirrors, but they are not power folding, so you will have to close those yourself if you want to. And then we do have the driver's side charging port at the back that is good for up to 11 kilowatts of AC charging. And then Chrysler says if you use a 350 kilowatt DC fast charger, you will charge faster than on a, say, 200 kilowatt. But according to their specs, the peak power is 183 kilowatts. So I'm not quite sure what the actual maximum is, but others are reporting that 183 is the max you can go. Now, in my opinion, the rear end is the best part of this car. I just love it. It, again, takes what was good about the Charger and brings it into more of a coupe style. Now, the rear has this oval light bar that Chrysler's calling the Ring of Fire. There's actually like 2 sets of LED lights that circle around it with their new old Fratzonic logo that lights up in the center. We also have a lift-back power-operated trunk with a pretty good amount of storage back there. You know, if you were a previous Challenger owner, you know that the rear storage there not only was kind of limited, but it was also kind of awkward getting things in and out just because of the way that it was designed. This is a lot better, although my groceries do still have to sit closer to the rear seats just because of the more fastback design. You're not getting quite as much storage towards the back of the trunk. Now, you will know that this is the Charger Daytona because it says so in the bumper. And then below that, very hard to see on my B-roll, unfortunately, we do have the Fratzonic naming for their Fratzonic chambered exhaust system. Now, here's a little history lesson for you. You might think that the Fratzonic logo that is being used on this vehicle is new, but in fact, it's actually an old logo that was first introduced in late 1962 and was used on Dodge vehicles up until 1981. Now, this is something that was news to me. I mean, I'm not a muscle car enthusiast, but I've never seen this logo before. At least I've never looked for it. Now, they're using that for the badge name, but then also the Fratzonic chambered exhaust system, their fake exhaust noises that come out of the back of this vehicle, they've given the name to that as well. So it's a little confusing, but it says that they use a two-passive radiator system to create a unique exhaust profile with Hellcat level intensity. Now, there are ways to turn it off. We'll talk about that when we take it on the road test. But before we head inside, I want you to take a listen to how it sounds and let me know what you think. All right, we're on the inside now of the Dodge Charger Daytona. First up, 16-inch gauge cluster, 12.3-inch infotainment system. Good sizes overall. They're pretty responsive. Haven't had any major issues with them so far. A number of different themes when it comes to the gauge cluster, depending on which drive mode you go in. Plus, there's different things. You have like your map open and stuff. So it's pretty cool there. Uconnect 5 isn't any different than we've seen on some of the other vehicles so far from Stellantis. It works well enough. Now, one of the things that Dodge has done, they've kind of come up with some fun names for some of their items, whether it's a feature of the vehicle or whatnot. We have the Attitude Adjustment 64 color ambient lighting system on here. It runs about 270 degrees from the driver door to the passenger door and will not only change color based on what you set it to, but there's some dynamic lighting to it to change the climate control, things like that. So a little bit more dynamic. We've seen that on some other vehicles as well. I think it's pretty cool. We have the pistol grip shifter here in the center to pull you into gear, plus the power button start-stop system that is physical, so you don't have to worry about like some electric vehicles where you get out of the vehicle, it turns itself off. This is on or off depending on whether or not you push the button, which is good. We have the flat top and bottom steering wheel. We're going to have to come up with a new term for these. It's not a D-cut anymore. It's almost like an egg shape kind of thing, but it works out well enough. Dodge says it's more for performance with, buttons on either side, drive modes, and the power shot button for that extra 40 horsepower, easily convenient. Flappy paddles, that's for your regen braking. Now we have the black leather and Dynamica suede perforated seats. The front ones are heat and ventilated with driver memory. The rear seats, they're actually heated outboard pretty good. And I do fit back there. Surprisingly enough, I do fit in the backs of these seats. Plus, there's vents in the center console and USB-C. So if you do have people that have to go back there, it's not going to be the worst experience. All the B-roll you're seeing of the interior here, that was me sitting back there. So it is possible, although there will never be B-roll of me getting in and out of that second row. With the carbon fiber package, we're getting the instrument panel, interior, and then those mirrors finished in carbon fiber. I think it looks pretty cool. We have the Dynamica suede headliner, and then the rest of the interior here, I think it's laid out pretty well. I mean, we've got a head-up display, we've got leather or leatherette throughout the dashboard with your carbon fiber and suede materials. It's a little bit more upscale than we've seen from some other Dodge products over the years, so I do like it. Is it, at the same caliber as like a BMW M3? No, not necessarily, but I like the fact that the infotainment and controls are pointing towards the driver. That's what's important. You've got all the functionality and everything that you need out of it, and then the space and comfort's surprisingly good. Now, one downside is this sunroof. I like it. Panoramic sunroof is good, goes all the way to the back, but there's no ability to stop the sun from coming in, right? There's no shade, there's no electronic dimming like we've seen on something like the Volkswagen ID Buzz. It's either there or you don't option it. So if you don't like the sun or you're worried, you're like me, you got thin hair, you don't want to be tanned too much, just don't option it, but I think it's nice enough. But it's time for us to take this vehicle on the road. I want to put it through its paces. I want to talk about how it performs and handles and everything else you need to know if you're curious or in the market for the Dodge Charger Daytona. All right, my friends, I promise we will do performance stuff. We got to get the important things done. First, though, energy efficiency. We completed our 100-kilometer test loop in automatic mode in 19.3 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, which is actually pretty reasonable for a four-wheel drive, all-wheel drive dual motor electric vehicle. Now, it's not very heavy, right? Not like a lot of the vehicles we've tested recently, and it's pretty aerodynamic. So those numbers are actually to be expected. It's kind of a wonder why we're still only getting about 375 kilometers of range, because based on that, we should get closer to 500. So I don't know. It's just what the car is reporting. I did use up a significant amount of energy, though, to come home. Car was about 69%. 200 and I want to say like 250 or 60 kilometers of range, and I made it home, so that was good. So yeah, it's not like the most efficient. It's not terrible though, but I don't think the people who are going to be buying this vehicle are going to care a whole lot about overall electric efficiency. No, the people who are buying this are buying it because they want performance. At least if you're getting the Scat Pack. I think the RT, especially at that $54,000 Canadian price point before delivery, is actually pretty reasonable. Now, I am in my custom mode. I'm going to change it actually to drag mode. Turns off traction control. It goes into the cool little animation there on the screen. Paddle shifters are disabled. For our launch here, this is the first time I've done this, folks. So, oh my God! Whoa! Holy Christ, man! That's oh my God, that's insane. That was really quick. It's supposed to be 3.3 seconds. Did it feel like that to you? I don't know. Now, here's the thing. I know I'm not going to convince most of you to put the sound mode on, okay? But was that dramatic? Was that exciting? I mean, maybe not to watch it, but even me driving it, I was like, okay, kind of peeling a little bit, get a little bit of wheel spin, a little scary. But now if we turn on the Fratsonic chambered exhaust, ooh, yes, my friends, there's a rumble all of a sudden to this vehicle. We put it back into launch mode. Oh, holy crap, man. Holy, that's fast. Oh, that's a lot more dramatic now, isn't it? Right? Yeah, not such a hater of the fake sounds, are you now? Right? It sounds kind of good. Futuristic, not quite just like a straight up V8. And I think some people might argue that going with a straight V8 sound without the sort of fake space shuttle kind of noises to it might be a better experience. But I mean, that thing it's pretty quick. And I mean, even from like a rolling start, like let's say, now I've put it back into my custom mode. It's still basically the drag performance, but we're going to do the power shot though this time. And we're going to do our launch. Oh my God. Oh, holy. I mean, there's like lag. The system's like lagging out. Oh man, that's fast. Oh, all right. Now, let's think a little bit, right? We've only really driven a couple performance vehicles here, just so that you can hear me a little bit better. I'm going to put this back into sport mode. There's still a bit of a grumble, and I'm going to put traction control back on. I don't want to die. But yeah, let's think back to, say, like the Hyundai Ioniq 5N. It was a really fun car, right? I was surprised by it. Now, part of it was because it was a bright orange color, turned a lot of heads, but it was really fun to drive. And part of the enjoyment that car brought to the table, at least for me, was low-end enjoyment with the fake shifting. There's no fake shifting on this. So you're really, stuck, if you want to say, with performance driving, right? So to really have fun with it, you got to rip it. Oh man, it's instant. I mean, good thing I didn't have lunch today. It would be unsettling my tummy a little bit. So the reason for this, like with most muscle cars, with your Hellcats of the world, is to go really fast in a straight line. I like it. It's different from what you get on the Ioniq 5N. It's different than a Tesla Plaid experience. It's different from even, say, the BMW i5 that we did. We did the i5 and the i7, both the performance, the M Performance versions. Those things were extremely quick as well. Again, going back to the Ioniq 5N, this does feel like I'm driving a PlayStation or an Xbox, right? It feels very electronic, and that's obviously because it's an electric vehicle, but there's a lot of electronics in it, and it kind of takes away from that man connected to machine thing. But that's the future, right? There's no denying it. We're never going to have a muscle car like we did in the 70s, right? This is a reinterpretation of what that can be. And when it comes to a strict performance vehicle, I mean, it's got the performance there. I can understand why somebody may want to buy this. It doesn't necessarily mean that the Hellcat owners are going to be buying it, but I can see why somebody may. And we hope that there are some owners of this vehicle out there that can help tell us what you think about it by heading over to our sponsor, ratemyev.com. It is the place to go when it comes to finding out information about your next electric vehicle. They've got all sorts of EVs on there. Really obscure things like the Ford Focus Electric, or things that are a little bit more mainstream like your Teslas of the world. But ratemyev.com is the owner-based review website that allows you to leave as much or as little information about your ownership experience as you want to share. And I had the pleasure of doing it recently for my electric vehicle that I had. And I got to say that you can give a ton of information that will be helpful for future buyers who are looking at maybe picking up something that you've got experience with. So we always say, whether it's a new car, old car, we always recommend you got to do your research first. ratemyev.com is the place to get a lot of that research done before buying your next electric vehicle. And big thanks to them for sponsoring this video. Now back to the experience here, right? It's so different. It is something that I think there will be people like somebody like me. I would be much more interested in buying this, but I would be buying this because I don't do a lot of driving, right? Most of my stuff is here in town. I like the idea of a performance car, and I really do think that this is a handsome looking vehicle. It's quite a good look that Chrysler's come out with. I really dig the look of it. So for me, it makes sense. It's not perfect. I mean, build quality number one. There's some panel issues that I noticed while filming the B-roll for this vehicle. Bit of a bummer considering this is built here in Canada at the Windsor assembly plant. So there's some little issues like that. As I mentioned, the interior here isn't like what I would expect for $107,000. So it does get very pricey pretty quickly. And then for the most part, I mean, like, it's kind of the same Dodge experience that you would expect from the other vehicles, right? Like the interior here, even though it's wrapped in a lot of leather or suede, it still is kind of plasticky. So again, it's not perfect, but is there anything that really competes with this? I don't think so, right? Yes, if you want a performance electric vehicle, there are other performance electric vehicles, but there aren't any performance electric two-door vehicles out there, and they certainly don't make a lot of ruckus like this, because I gotta say, like, I just enjoy putting it into like my custom mode. Oh yeah, it sounds cool. I like it. I just wish there was an easier way to turn it off, because again, you got to go into the vehicle settings and then you turn it off and then it's quiet, but now there's no drama. And I feel like you need the drama. I feel like you need to have a little something, a little bit of that oomph to really make an impact. And yeah, you're going to annoy some people. My wife hates it. She thinks it's so stupid, but I kind of like it. And even the brake system works pretty well. Regen braking, except it just puts it on the maximum when you're doing it. It's a bit of a pain. But again, oh my God, man, it's so fast. It's so fast. I like it. Good job. We try to say this every time somebody does a good job here. I gotta say that, yeah, they nailed it. They nailed what this car was set out to be, which is, again, why you gotta watch the other one. Should it be, is the question. But yeah, I've enjoyed my time with it. It's too bad that this is a 24, because the 25s, you can already build and price them, and they've already announced the 26. Is there any change? Not really. I think there was like a $500 price difference between this and a 25 with all the same features. US pricing was identical, so I don't know. They were just kind of slow getting it out to folks, but give it a chance. If you're in the market for this, give it a chance. And I have a feeling that this might be one of those like future classics. And it even feels a little weird saying it, because there's a lot of weight behind saying something like that. But I think it's mostly because it's not going to be a huge seller. From what I understand, they only sold about 1,900 of these in the US in the first half of 2025. So when I say it's going to be a future classic, I think it's just because they're not going to sell a lot of them. Whereas everybody who bought like a Hellcat when they first came out, they were kind of hoping that it would be a really rare car, and then even your grandma's got one now, right? So I don't know. Let me know. I want to know, because that's the thing, is I've talked to some current Hellcat and Dodge owners, and they're not really interested in it. But I haven't talked to anybody who owns one of these. So if you've got a Charger Daytona, I want to hear from you. I want to know why you bought it. What made you sign the papers to get this vehicle? Do you have a gas muscle car already? Let me know. I'm very curious. I'd like to hear from you. Get into the comments. As we always say, if you haven't subscribed to the video, we really appreciate it if you would do so. That helps us out, get to our next milestone. But that'll do it for me. I've burnt a little bit of rubber today, and I think that's enough. I think the cops are going to start looking for somebody with a big speaker in the back of their car soon, and I'm going to be that guy. So I'm going to head out, but thanks for watching, and until next time, take care.